Hi, hello, and welcome everybody to Wolf Tales, our newest adventure. I, like most of the time, know nothing about this game outside of the name. So, let's get into it and see what we have to find. There we go. Mail. Yes, enter a glorious name. Well, fingers crossed it actually put us down as a male. Brr. I stare at the road before me, which is now barely visible thanks to a flurry of snow. The storm had arrived violently while I was out, and before I knew it, I had gotten sucked into the middle of it. Almost home, I say. My breath is visible in front of me as I creep forward on the snowed over road. Even though my heater is on full blast, it isn't enough to ward off the freezing cold. I shudder to think of how cold I'd be without it. The sooner I get home, the better. I'd hate to get stranded out here in this. Slowing my truck to a stop in front of the cabin, I turn the key in the ignition and shut it off. The heater immediately stops blowing, and I can already feel the chill hit me. Time to brace myself for the freezing winds raging between me and the cabin. Here goes, I say. I rush inside as quickly as I can, shivering from head to toe, despite my thick clothing. The moment I slam the door shut behind me, the sound of the wind howling outside quiets, and the chattering of my teeth fills the room. It is warmer in here, but not to the point where I can whimsically toss aside my extra layers and flop onto the couch. If I suddenly remove all my extra layers right this instant, I'll probably pass out from the change in temperature. Whose idea was it to start living out here anyways, I ask. As the sole occupant of this cabin, I expect no response to my rhetorical question. For better or worse, I decided for myself that I would live in these snowy mountains all on my own. Alright, tea, a bite to eat, and then I'll turn in for the night. In the middle of a snowstorm like this, it's important to keep nourished and warm. After reminding myself to adhere to a few basic survival tips, I fill the kettle with water and turn it on. Man, I'm glad to have electricity out here, I say. Without ready access to hot water, there's no way I'd survive out here. I should have enough food to last until summer, too, by which point I'll be able to go into town without freezing to death. Life out here might just work out after all. I mean, it's not uncommon for men to decide to make a go of it on their own, isolated from society at large. I'd found it a relatively easy adjustment to begin living out here. Though, in my circumstances, this cabin was my only option at the time. The moment I think so, my body begins to shiver once more. I feel cold wind brush up against my cheek, threatening to give me frostbite if I dare to take off any layers of clothing. That's weird, I say. It shouldn't be this cold inside the cabin. I know there's a snowstorm out there, but the cabin is pretty well insulated. It shouldn't be this cold unless the door is open. Curious about the source, and also desperate to stop the cold, I walk through the cabin to try and figure out where it's coming from. After checking all the windows, I wind up near the back entrance of the cabin, and surely enough, as I spot the back door, I have my answer. Ah, gotcha, I say. I hurriedly clear away the snow at the base of the door, which seems to have stopped the door from opening or closing any further. I then close the door, lock it, and move a few things in front of the door to prevent it from opening, even if the lock were to break. That ought to do it, I say. But how did that door get open in the first place, I ask myself. I could see myself forgetting to lock it since I'm all alone out here anyways, but there's no way I'd forget to close it. Is the latch broken, I ask myself. Forget it. I'll think about it later after I've had something warm to drink. I turn away from the door and begin to walk towards the kitchen. No sooner have I begun to move my foot, however, than I realize that the floor is soaking wet. Ah, some snow must have blown inside and melted, I say. I guess I better clean this up. I'd say my eyes widen as I realize something important. There isn't just one puddle of water, there are several. Following a clear non-linear the path someone or something has taken. Damn, an intruder, I ask? Or maybe a wild animal? I instinctively grab an axe that I keep for wood off the back wall. Sorry, buddy. I understand that you want to take refuge from the cold, but a guy's got to protect himself. Axe in hand, I head deeper into the storeroom, prepared to defend myself against the potentially dangerous person or animal that has wandered into my home. Moving even further inside, I cautiously move around the table and... Well, that's not it's not the most normal freeze, I say. What the, I say. My arms lose all strength as I stare at the peculiar sight in front of me. On the floor of my storeroom is a girl. She is shivering wet and her breath is ragged. Red-faced yet blue in the fingertips, the poor girl looks like she's about to freeze to death at any moment. And yet, what attracts my attention is that tail and those ears. It couldn't be. Without thinking, I drop my axe on the floor and reach out towards the girl's ears. I gently tug on her ears, trying to pull them off, or otherwise expose their stitching. However, no matter how hard I pull, there's no sign of it being a practical joke. As far as I can tell, these wolf-like ears are real. Impossible, I say. She really is a half-human. That can't be right. I made absolutely certain that this place wasn't intruding on the domain of any half-humans. Did I make a mistake, or is she just... Mirari. Yeah. Okay, so her name is Mirari. I think that's how you pronounce that. Alright. Before I can mull over the girl's presence any further, her whimpering brings me back to reality. Right, I say. Whatever the reason for her presence here, it doesn't change the fact that she's freezing to death in my cabin. I'll worry about all the details later. For now, I have to make sure she doesn't die. I grab a towel from one of the shelves in the storeroom and immediately begin to dry the young girl off. The moment I make contact with her skin, I realize just how close to death this girl really is. Her body is so cold that I can feel it through the towel. Her skin is deathly pale, and she can't stop shivering. Desperately, I rub the girl's body, trying to both dry her off. However, no matter how much her body moves about, she does not stir. The girl is breathing but unconscious. Even if I tried to, I don't think I'd be able to wake her up. Shit, this isn't working, I say. I'm going to have to step things up a notch. Many hours pass by as the unconscious wolf girl continues to rest. Over time, her breathing gradually becomes less ragged and color returns to her skin. The incessant shivering comes to an end, her lips stop quivering, and a faint yet peaceful smile appears on her face. While it is still too soon to rest easy, it seems like the girl is going to be just fine. Phew, I was worried for a while there, but it looks like things have finally calmed down. I guess some dry clothes and a long sleep in a warm cabin were all she needed. Feeling good about myself for having been able to help out, I watch the girl sleep for a while as I contemplate what to do next. The snowstorm has died down now, so I should probably have this girl leave as soon as she wakes up. Though, I suppose I could at least feed her first. She must be famished after sleeping for so long and almost freezing to death. It would be heartless for me to not at least... Mirari groans. While I'm in the middle of thinking out loud, the wolf girl finally begins to move. What starts out as a faint groan quickly turns into visible movement on her part. The girl's eyelids twitch, and I can see her lips trembling. In a matter of seconds, she will no doubt open her eyes. Minardi yawns. That was quite a... Huh? She says. The girl's eyes open wide as she starts to gain her bearings. Her eyes dart around the room, trying to fill in the blanks of her memory. Oh, yes, I remember now, Miyadari says. I got caught up in a snowstorm. In the snowstorm, didn't I? I finally found shelter, but I thought my mind was just playing tricks on me as my body started to shut down. Am I really alive? Miyadari asks. You sure are, I say. At least as far as I can tell. Ah! Miyadari jumps in fright as she finally notices my presence. This is... Miyadari says. The girl tries to speak but fails to formulate a proper sentence. With that being the case, I decide to explain the situation, giving her time to calm down. I found you in my storeroom, shivering and unconscious on the floor, I tell her. I dried you off and brought you inside, but it was hard to tell if you were going to survive or not. Your fingertips had already started turning blue by the time I had found you, and your breathing was a complete mess. Listening to my calm explanation, the girl looks down at herself. She pinches her clothing, seeming surprised at how clean and dry they are. My clothes, Miyadari says. Did you? I avert my gaze. Yeah, I did, I say. Before you say anything, it's not like I was trying to peek, okay? I said. Your clothes were wet, and you were at risk of freezing to death. It's not like I could just leave you like that, I explained to her. Just like me, the girl blushes and looks away. Wolf girl or not, she must surely be embarrassed to have her body seen by a stranger, a human male no less. Rather than adopt an expression of anger, however. Thank you, Miyadari says. Huh? I ask. The girl forces herself to look at me once more. With eyes filled with sincerity, she continues to speak. I am a trespasser, Miyadari says. I broke into your cabin, intruded in your home, and dared to use your shelter as my own, she says. Yet despite all of that, you went to such lengths for me. Oh, yeah, I guess you could look at it that way, I say. It really isn't that big of a deal, though. You were caught in the middle of a snowstorm. If I were in your situation, I would have broken in too. Besides, all I did was dry you off and clean your clothes. It's nothing really major. It is something major, Miyadari says. If you hadn't taken pity on me, I would have... Before the girl can finish speaking, she is interrupted by the sound of the kettle whistling. Ah, it sounds like breakfast is ready, I say. Excuse me for a moment. As I move away from the girl and head towards the kitchen. Once I set foot in front of the kettle, I grab an additional ceramic bowl for my guest, since she has woken up now. But breakfast, she asks? Alright, everybody. You mean to say that it's morning now? Alright, everybody. I'm going to call it here for this episode. This was a little fun intro. I quite enjoyed it. As always, I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you next time for more.